Hi folks, it's Craig here. I'm recording on Jar Jar Country today, so apologies if the resolution of the video is a bit less than it usually is. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm going to give you a bit of an update, a few things to update you on this time around. So first of all, we are co-signatories to a letter put out by Simon Cattell, who many of you will know does great advocacy in the mental health space. And this letter was about reduction in WorkCover in terms of mental health claims. So we're greatly concerned about that and really feel that WorkCover needs to be fixed and to be able to cover mental health properly rather than mental health claims essentially being discriminated against. So that's the first thing I wanted to update you about. Next, we wrote a letter, and there was a lot of co-signatories to the Attorney General, Jacqueline Symes, and this was about Victoria's anti-vilification framework. What we were particularly interested in is seeing those laws widening, and for particular example, there being a standalone category of mental health to increase protection for people around things being said around people who experience mental health challenges, because we know that those things contribute to mental ill health for people. So you can see that one on our website as well. The next thing I wanted to talk about was VMIAC's response to the NDIS review. It's on our website as well, and I've got some notes here I'm going to go through. I apologise in advance. I will be reading this part because there's a lot of detail I want to cover here for you about this one. So the topic is the NDIS who were accepting submissions from individuals, families, carers and organisations about what is and isn't working in the NDIS. And so this is a current review, I should say, and they're focusing on 4 main points. So many of you will probably know about these, have great expertise in these areas: problem and concerns with the NDIS, the effects of these problems, possible solutions to these problems, and parts of the NDIS that are working. So we engaged in consultation with VMIAC staff who work closely with NDIS participants and prospective participants to get their ideas and thoughts about what is and isn't working for us as consumers in the NDIS. So this is really important because there are often many challenges and barriers faced by people with psychosocial disability, as it's called in the NDIS, accessing and being able to navigate the NDIS. It's important to VMIAC that we're a voice in the NDIS review process and the development of what we hope will be a better system for people with disability. So what was discussed? Our submission addressed 8 key problem areas for people with psychosocial disability, including accessibility, administrative burden, communication, consistency and transparency, deterrence and gatekeeping, stigma and discrimination, lack of accountability, underqualified NDIS staff and delegates, and funding limitations. We offered up a series of recommendations about how the NDIS can improve across those areas. So you can check that out with our submission on our website. What we advocated for on behalf of you, our members: reducing the administrative burden incumbent on NDIS participants and prospective participants, improve communication, consistency and transparency within the NDIS, lessening deterrence and gatekeeping by improving accountability and staff capability in the NDIS, and increasing funding for advocacy and lived and living experience within the NDIS. What we're hoping for here is that the feedback and recommendations that VMIAC has delivered are heard and acted on as the NDIS space changes, hopefully making the NDIS more accessible for people with psychosocial disability and experiences of mental ill health. Some of you will probably be aware that Tuesday of last week, the Victorian State Budget came out. We were warned a little bit that this was going to be a bit of budget repair in terms of the debt that the government had incurred through COVID. So we weren't expecting a great mental health budget. So you can see our response on our website. We are pleased with some of the things in mental health that have been funded, but we're very particularly concerned about recommendation 29 not being funded. So that's the recommendation of our agency, the agency to support consumer lived experience right through the reform and indeed the mental health system. So this has not been funded. We're really, really upset by this, and we are actually mounting a campaign. Some of you might have seen the position on our website for someone to run that campaign, and that closes on the 2nd of June. So depending on when you are viewing this video, that might still be open, because we are looking to have a coordinated campaign with allies on board to try and have this decision reversed, so that we can get moving on this really, really important recommendation, which supports consumer work and consumer innovation throughout the system. So stay tuned on our website for any opportunities, perhaps where we might be encouraging people to write letters and that sort of thing, and be involved in the campaign in other ways. I also wanted to update you on the Leadership Committee of Management meeting regarding the strategic plan, which was held on the Tuesday the 23rd. It was actually the same day as the state budget, which wasn't the greatest of timing for all of us, trying to straddle both of those things. Our chair, Tricia Zron, led a consolidation of the key learnings from prior consultation with the COM and VMIAC staff members, more than 20 consultation sessions with stakeholders, and 4 consultation sessions with members and consumers, including one specifically for consumers in government's roles, and one for people in lived and living experience workforce. It was a really spirited, frank discussion about what should be VMIAC's 5 strategic directions for 2023 to 2028. What we heard from members and consumers was in alignment with what Tricia had heard from others. And Tricia actually made a joke. It took consumers and members 2 hours to tell us what it took the common leadership team full 2 days to tell us. So that's the power and vision that exists within you, our members. And thank you very much to those of you who've participated in that and who do participate in lots of other things that we do. So the next step there is for the COM to consider the strategic plan at the June COM meeting. And following this, we'll communicate the final strategic plan to you, our members and stakeholders. And thank you very much for your interest and participation in that. The final thing I wanted to talk to you about, so I flagged in my last update, is that I've just come back from Perth, Noongar country, where I attended the Royal Australian New Zealand Congress of Psychology, College of Psychiatry, I should say, Congress. I was there on Monday and Tuesday, including being a co-presenter in a presentation, which was entitled Collaboration for Mental Health Reform. So I did this alongside Mary O'Hagan. Many of you would know Mary, the Executive Director of the Lived Experience in the Department of Health, and also alongside Sudeep Sarav, Neil Coventry, the Chief Psychiatrist, Michelle Swan, and Marie Pugh from the Family Care Supporter space. So I was there in person. A couple of the presenters joined online, and the presentation was well received, and I think it really moved things for some people in terms of what's actually needed for us to provide the type of system and support that we need, that consumers need. A couple other things. I think the keynote was amazing. Dr. Cornelia Wyman, she's a Canadian Indigenous psychiatrist, and she weaved a story, using data and her own personal story, and it was a really engaging and inspiring way to start the Congress. A couple of sessions that I went to mention. Went to a session around training, and I actually asked a question in that session about what is the role of training, ensuring that services are held accountable. So there's some good discussion there. I also went to a presentation around compulsory treatment there as well, and I had some dialogue afterwards with one of the presenters about an image I thought which was inappropriate to be used, and I think the outcome of that is she's not going to use that image again. As a consumer, it was an interesting place to be around a Congress that was designed for psychiatrists. It was great to get into some of those sessions and be part of co-presenting as well, and make some new connections to also later in the year. Some of us from VMIAC and some of you members will be heading to the THEMS conference in Adelaide as well. Okay, so that's all from me. Take care, and I look forward to giving you another update soon. Thank you.